Oh man, remember
And now
that
I genuinely feel bad as I'm thinking it through.
Well, that's
personal growth sucks, and I'm sorry. I genuinely am. So anyway, go ahead and move on.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Odd Testament podcast. My name is Ryan.
My name is Eric.
Hi, I'm Greg.
What's going on, boys? Good to be with you guys again. If you are here for a fresh perspective on scripture, or maybe a laugh, or maybe you're exploring faith, whatever brought you here, we're glad you're here. You're in the right place today, guys. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, it's getting nicer outside. Oh, you're sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
See,
so excuse my audio. Yeah, microphone's gone today and all that. So deal with it.
Your virus extended to your computer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do not have COVID. I do know I did a test. So my mom had me tested.
Love it. Okay, guys. What's new with you? What's going on? Anything new that you're doing, reading? This is not the get to know you question. Just curious. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in a long time, though. It's only been a week.
Yeah, I know. It's doesn't it? Yeah, the time seems to be both slowing down and going too fast. April was a blur. For those, again, not making this an evergreen podcast, but May so far has felt like a crawl. Not in a bad way. I really needed it to slow down. So I was just telling our church staff, like, okay, we got out of the Christmas, Easter, New Year, got to start new programs and sermon series and all this stuff. We got that out of the way. Now we can just kind of honestly chill out a little bit and relax, and back to school be in August here in Omaha, but we do things pretty calm as far as that stuff. So the next time we get really busy is the upcoming holidays in the winter. So I am excited to breathe and just kind of settle. So I will take slow down, nice weather. My wife and I sat outside last night, just enjoyed the crisp air, and yeah, it was. I'm excited about that.
Love it. It's getting for us here out in Delaware. It's getting to where the temperature's starting to creep up now. Obviously, high 70s, low 80s, and so what I do, because I sit inside most of the time, or I'm inside most of the time, to try to get some sun over my lunch break. Because I office out of my house, I'll go during the lunch hour. I will go lay on our trampoline, and with my shirt off, and just to soak up as much sun as I can. I'm like, oh, it's glorious. And I just listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something like that. It's fantastic. So how about you, Greg? You walking around without a shirt?
Do you live stream it?
Yeah,
it's that only pastors again.
Oh, gosh, get out of here.
Was that even on the podcast? We were joking about that.
Nope, I took it out. I was too uncomfortable. Good. I think I'm a little more comfortable this time. I'll leave it in.
We're gonna call it Bears on Display. Anyway.
You're welcome. All right, guys.
Listen, okay, I do.
If you just went, I don't know what he means. You're a better person.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, who knows? This isn't a get to know you, but I'm interested in your guys' take on a trend that's going on right now online, and it's 100 men versus one gorilla.
Bro, you stole it.
Oh, is that the
that was gonna be my get to know you? Okay. So okay.
So go.
Okay, guys, you know what it's time for. It's time for getting to know you.
Getting to know you. Getting to know you. Getting to know you. Getting to know you.
I turned my
And
headphones down this time.
that was good job, Eric. That was going to be my question.
Oh my gosh, this is we're
100
already on the
men
same-
versus one gorilla. Who are you taking, and why?
Did you see the post about Scott Steiner, the old school wrestler?
Yes, I did.
No.
Yeah.
And he like breaks it down. He's like, a third of them are just going to run away. Another 20 are going to sit around and talk about how to do it and how they feel and stuff.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen when Big Papa Pump shows up? And anyway, that gorilla's in
Now
trouble.
it's a problem. Yeah. Now the gorilla has a problem. Yeah.
Is he still roided out?
I have no
I'm
idea.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. His nephew is a wrestler now,
Oh, yeah.
and he's pretty awesome. So, yeah. Speaking of WWE, my son and I, we just went to a big event here in Omaha, and it was awesome. Both of us lost our voice. It was really cool. But, anyways, 100 men, one gorilla. So here's the thing: Omaha here has one of the best zoos in the world, like for sure the nation, but like it's got to be up there. I'm sure Dubai has some crazy thing or something like that, but so there's this huge gorilla enclosure, and it's only gotten better and better throughout the years. And so there is a change in your opinion when you are just a couple feet away from a silverback gorilla. When you see them like in person, and they have to put like a 6-inch piece of glass in between you and them in order to feel safe. And even then, there have been instances where the gorilla has charged the glass and like broke it, like didn't shatter it, but like cracked it, and they have to remove everybody out of the building, like not even just that section, like you got to leave the building, because if that thing gets out, like it's there's nothing you can do. So that being said, I think I'm still going the 100 men.
Yes.
Like even if we just go like the average man, like I'm slightly below average on height. I'm probably like average strength level, meaning like I don't work out, but just whatever natural walking around, dad strength. I got a little bit of that, it's all in the shoulders. And I think if you get enough men, and the goal is you have to put it to sleep first. Like it's not just like makeshift tools, like it's just hands only. It's like that. There's going to be some casualties, but I think 100 men can take one gorilla. I think when you add a second gorilla, there's no chance.
Interesting. Greg, what do you think?
I just looked up, a gorilla's neck can be around 36 inches.
Just enough for these pythons.
Yeah. Gorilla 100%. Where even the meanest of us are tamed. If your gorilla is maybe 6 months old, maybe, and it also depends on, are you talking about 100 men who are bought into this thing, or just 100 randoms?
If you just drop them in like a Mr. Beast video.
Right. You're talking 100. Now, if you're talking, take 100 out of the SEAL teams and throw them in there. And they have time ahead of time to plan how they're going to do it. Maybe the guys, but any other situation that I can think of, as long as you don't have tools, the gorilla is going to do major damage, and fear is going to set in, and you're going to end up with a smaller group pretty quick, and that group will not be able to organize itself into a cohesive attack. It will be an ambush, even though it's coming, even though there's not hidden stuff. And so the correct response to an ambush is to go at it, but unless you know that, you run away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, is this like a little bit of military experience on your part, where like any type of training where they're telling you like, here's when to fight, here's when to run, or anything? Because here's my thing, I'm thinking like, you go for limbs. Like if you get like, I know this is dumb, but like the solution to defeat Thanos in Avengers was to grab the limbs. Like, and he was as strong as the Hulk. So I'm just saying, like, you got to take the legs, you got to get the arms, and then everything's vulnerable from there. And they got long arms, so you can get enough dudes on that, like, and enough dudes can lift up a car, like, not that many, like, and so I don't know. I'm just, like, yes, there's going to be
If you
some
can plan it.
casualties. Yeah.
If you can plan it. But one thing, the only thing I can think of, because their skin is thicker, their strength is ridiculous, is maybe go after a knee. If you had even a small knife, you could start trying to get their Achilles or any tendons. But I just don't see. Yeah, you would have to control the arms somehow. Is anybody in your group into jiu-jitsu? Maybe they can give more indication on how to hold it down. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have a group of
pack
high-level wrestlers? Yeah. Do you have a group? Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a group of high-level wrestlers? Yeah, somehow, can Ryan do what he did to me in a beanbag and
just lay down on the gorilla,
fall on me? Yeah. So,
Ryan, what about you?
Or if Big Papa Pump's there, then Scott can take care of it.
Steiner bomb him. Yeah.
So, so I saw somebody kind of break down. So if it's average men, if it's your average like accountant from Walmart or whatever.
Real quick, I don't know about a Walmart accountant, but I have a friend now who's at our church who is an accountant, but he's like 6'4" and jacked, and like a hunter guy and everything else. Nicest guy, genuine great guy, and is an accountant nerd. But yeah, so there you go. So if he was there, maybe.
So if it's your average guy, this is what I think. The gorilla, as big as a gorilla is, it's too small for 100 men to get to it at once. So really, you're probably having 4 guys at a time go at it, and this gorilla is just he's eating, right? He's just doing work, and like literally probably eating. Have you seen the fangs on a gorilla? They are wicked. So it's not just the strength, but like this gorilla is going to tear you apart, literally, probably with his teeth. And so, if it's average men, I don't think so. But I saw a guy break down on TikTok. He goes, "I don't need 100 men." He goes, "If I could pick 10 guys that I choose," he goes, "I think we could take down a gorilla." And he was like John Jones was one of them, John Bones Jones, Eddie Hall, the strong man who at 400 pounds has a 6-pack. He talked to Brian Shaw too, Hafthor Bjornsson. Like if you give me like specific guys that I can hand pick, then I think we have a shot. But even then, I'm like, I don't think people realize the strength that those animals operate with.
I'm sure.
Like, could a bear take down a gorilla? I don't know. Like the bears
like
are probably
grizzly.
bigger. Yeah, like bears are bigger and stronger, but gorillas probably quicker. And so like. Like that's I don't think your average run-of-the-mill 100 men could take down a gorilla. So
I'm gonna ask AI Gemini on Google and see what its response is. I'm pulling it up right now, and this is the only way you should use AI is to answer the questions.
Oh, I just did ChatGPT. This is what it said. I asked, can 100 men take down one silverback gorilla? ChatGPT, no. 100 unarmed men would almost certainly not be able to take down a single silverback gorilla without suffering massive casualties, and potentially not at all. Here's why: physical power, and it breaks down that speed and agility, ferocity and defense, coordination.
Ferocity, that's the one.
Yes. So without weapons, ChatGPT says there's no way. And so Yes,
Mhm.
I agree with you, Eric. This is the way we should be using AI.
This is
Not like investing and all that. Write me a book. No, these are the important
these.
questions of life.
These are the important questions. Yeah.
See, here's the Gemini response. It says it very similar, but it gives an argument for the 100 men, and what they would have to do in order to do this. Like one is intelligence and strategy, just like we talked about. Like, and it says potentially because you would have to organize,
Right.
which is unlikely with 100 men when we can't even organize our own vacations. And then endurance. So especially if it's in waves, then the gorilla is only one gorilla. It has a higher endurance than the average man for sure. And then the last one, it says a grim reality sacrifice.
Nice. Yes. Very
Some
much.
men could act as distractions or be sacrificed to allow the others to gain an advantage. Just
So
like,
Chat GPT
Could you
ended it
get
with
one
this.
of the gorilla's arms off and then beat the gorilla with their own arms?
Oh man, PETA. If PETA is listening, we're just kidding, PETA. We love animals. No, we don't want to.
Is one of the men smaller such that you could swing them at the gorilla?
Right. Yes.
Anyway.
So Chat GPT ended the question or the answer this way. Realistically, with weapons and coordination, yes, 100 trained armed humans could subdue or kill a gorilla. Unarmed, it's a bloodbath. That's what it says.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like the
ChatGPT.
idea. I know like ChatGPT and AIs, like as you talk to it, it develops, especially if you log in and use it often, it'll use like it's how you talk to it. It'll learn like how you link. So I like the idea of ChatGPT becoming really broy. Like its first like response is like an emoji of a fist bump. You're like, yeah, bro, right question.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That's
Bro,
funny.
I don't know. Yeah, it does. That'd
Yeah.
be funny.
Man, if we
Cool.
got a 40
And it
with
says-
us, yeah.
Right. And it says, "It's back when I was playing baseball." That's what it would say.
Yeah.
Or,
I could throw a football over a mountain.
man, I
So-
wrestled in high school, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
Anyway.
Well, guys, thanks for humoring me. Thanks for stealing my question, Eric. It's
Good
good.
work.
No, it was a good question. I'm glad we're on the same
That's right.
same track. So
We're figuring it out.
today, Greg, you have the
Mm.
topic, and to get us started, we're gonna do our 7 questions to try to guess the topic. So, Eric, would you like to kick us off by asking the first question?
You know, I feel like I go this way every time, but it rules it out, you know. So is this in the Old Testament?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
dang,
no.
2/3. We gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah, so much bigger. Is it in Torah? Is it in the first 5 books?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it about Abraham?
Yes.
Come on. Let's go. 3 for 3.
Is this the story of Abraham taking Isaac up the mountain to sacrifice him?
No. No.
Okay. Okay. Is this Sodom and Gomorrah?
No.
That's
Okay.
5, I think.
We got 2
6.
more.
Is this Genesis 15, the story of Abraham making the covenant with God?
No.
Last one, Eric.
Oh. Is this Abraham leaving Ur? Is this his introduction to Abraham?
No.
Dang.
That's a good one.
So
Yeah.
that's 7.
I wanna
That's
do all of
7. We didn't
Yep.
get it.
Didn't
Greg,
get it.
tell us.
You didn't get it in specific, but
Okay.
this is going to be a combo podcast. We're going to do it next time also.
Let's
So
go.
you got, Eric did get next week's. So we won't do 7 questions next week.
Okay. Sodom
But-
and Gomorrah.
That'll be next week. Yep.
Yeah.
So a little teaser for y'all. But this one is the story immediately preceding it, and I think they're connected. And we're going to get into why they're connected and some of what, at least I think, is going on here. But
Let's go.
this is Abram meeting, or Abraham, angels showing up, or God showing up to Abraham's tent in Genesis 18.
Love it.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Awesome.
Love the
Good.
story.
All right. So you're going to have to help me divide this up. Again, I'm going to appeal to I ain't well. So I'm going to try and kind of help me along, guys, with keeping it going so I don't get caught up. But it begins with, I want to start reading in a little bit once we get down to verse 16.
Okay.
But the lead up is also, and I'll read a little bit just to kind of start the story, but then we'll summarize some. But again, we're looking at Genesis 18, and it said, the Lord appeared again to Abraham, his name had been changed at this point, near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. My Lord, he said, if it pleases you, stop here for a while, rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue your journey. All right, they said, do as you have said. So I really could continue reading, but I don't want to boring. So it says Abram rushes back to his tent, gets Sarah and says, hurry, his wife, and says, hurry, make some food. Then they ran out, they kill a calf and make more food, and they also take yogurt and milk and the roasted meat. And so since this is in a paragraph, tell me about the dynamic of time. And if you're trying to feel a story, this isn't totally relevant, other than I want to talk about how you read and at what point do you become aware of maybe different elements in time specifically. So let me be really clear with my question. Is this happening, verses 6 through 8, is this happening in 5 minutes?
No, this would be a meal. This is, and so yes, I love this perspective and this kind of thing, because I, especially in trying to bring the Bible to life to people whenever we have discussions, it's just what you read in 3 sentences is a long period of time potentially. This one, it talks about a meal, and if you know anything about cooking, especially if you weren't supposed to be prepared to cook and now you're doing that, there's a gathering of stuff, and then the cooking and the sitting, and there's a waiting, and you can kind of bring the story to life in that, like, yes, this is a time. It wasn't, here's our leftovers from lunch. If it's the hottest part of the day, it could be assumed sun's at its peak. It's going to be around noon. In that time, maybe they've already had a meal of some sort. They've also probably been working all day, and they are in a rest period. So this is why he's outside of the tent. He's resting, and then his first response is, hey, here are some travelers. There's probably not anything nearby for them to stay in for themselves. And so he's being a good host, and he's opening up. So like, this is a period of time, and we're seeing some of Abraham, his responsibilities of also being the head of the house, the head of his community, his family.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I read ahead a little bit, but just to kind of make the point. So
Do it.
it said one day Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day, which is probably around midday, right? Probably noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m., something like that. So around there, and he says, if it pleases you, stop here for a while, right? That it infers like an extended period of time. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. Let me prepare some food. And then he goes to his wife. He says, get 3 large measures, which in the notes here, it equates that to about 22 liters is what it says, which is a lot. That's a lot of flour. Knead it into dough and bake some bread. And so that's going to take a long time to knead 22 liters of flour into dough. Then it says that he went and he had one of his servants grab a tender calf, or he grabbed a tender calf and gave it to a servant, prepare it quickly, but then it says he roasted it. And so roasting, if you don't know, roasting meat takes a while, especially over an open flame if it's not in an oven. And so like this is a hours long process, if not longer. So this is happening over an extended period in a day.
Good. We don't, as far as I can tell, we don't, he calls them Lord, he calls the people Lord. But I don't know at what point Abram realizes this is a particularly unique visit, meaning that it's God or representatives of God that are showing up.
I was going to say, Greg, from your experience and studies, is this a common response to travelers that are going to be coming by? Like, would they expect this? Would they specifically be going in their travels? They said, "Oh, there's a settlement. Let's head that direction." I mean, again, Abraham potentially having no realization that this is any divine thing happening. Is he responding appropriately? Is he going above and beyond? Would this be something he's done before?
Yeah, and that was going to be my question. It's one of the 2 things that I want to talk about today is what do you guys know about hospitality in the ancient Near East? What's kind of popped up? What do you remember? These kind of things.
So I know it's an essential part of life, especially for nomadic people, right, who are living in a desert area. Like, how are you going to survive if the people that are living in proximity to you don't offer this hospitality in some cases? And so it's essential to life. It's a chance to give somebody who's weary and weak, it's a chance to give them rest and sustenance. And so I don't think this is like, according to what we just read, I don't think it's a brand new idea, right? So this isn't like something that God introduced to Abram or Abraham. Like, I think it is just a part of the culture beforehand. But it appears to me that it's a really important thing to God, this idea of hospitality. So and maybe I'm reading into this a little bit from my knowledge of other scriptures, but like I think it's an essential part of life for these people, but it's also an important thing to God. So
I would say I don't have intimate knowledge, so Ryan I think had the best answer. I don't have any further knowledge outside of base level reading.
Cool. So yes, to weirdly both. This is a long time ago. We have some information, and we can definitely dive deeper. You can go find people that have researched ancient sources and things like that. There's stories about how this kind of works out, even up to Greek myth. So when you're looking at Paul, so I'm jumping way forward. If you look at Paul and who they thought they were Zeus and Hermes, who was with Paul? Was it Barnabas? I think it was. So
That's New Testament. That's not really my area. So
okay. Anyway, that story is actually affected by hospitality too, in that there's a myth around that the gods Zeus and Hermes had shown up in that area and weren't received by people, but finally were received by this really poor old couple, and the old couple got blessed while the rest of the area got decimated.
Yes, Barnabas in Acts 14. Yeah, it's, they perceived him as an amazing person, that he must be Zeus. Yeah,
exactly. And because the other one was a talker, so Barnabas was
Must
Zeus
be Hermes.
and Paul was Hermes, because he was a communicator. And so you see it as a standard at some point or other. So think there are cities, but not in the sense that we think about them. There are, especially in Abraham's time, you see where Sodom was invaded by not a huge force, because Abram takes less than 100 people and goes and beats them. So for us, they're being written like they're wars, but they're what we would call skirmishes. And so different kind of times, but the standard, there are certain standards and understandings within the culture. So hospitality is definitely one of them. And I think, Ryan, you were really dead on about the nomad thing. Why is so? Let's see what Abraham is doing here. That he runs out and says, "Come, please," and asks them to stop, and then pulls out all the stops. Just does everything he can to take care of them. We can, if we read this as God, we go, okay, of course. But I think you can read it as God and read it as anybody. Why do this? Why would this be an understood, whatever it is, and we'll kind of clarify some of that as much as I can. Not being an utter scholar about this, just aware. Why would this be a thing for the culture as a whole?
Is there anything to this that even potentially this is an above and beyond act, at least, to the amount of things that are going on here? Could this be a reaction of the covenant that Abram was given by God, which is, hey, I'm going to make you a blessing. Like I will bless you, and then you will bless the nations through you. And so this would be like as God has continued to favor him, the more he gives, the more he's freeing of what God has blessed him with. God continues to bless him. Especially in this story, what you see is, Abraham and Sarah are old. They've been living this life for a long time. They've probably learned the lesson over time. Hey, the more generous I am, the more generous God is. So there is kind of like a give and take, but Abraham is the father of faith. And so if God said, I will bless others through you, then he must be, any opportunity should be an opportunity to do what God told him to do. I don't know. I might be reading.
I think I think that is one of the possible reads of it, and I don't think you're doing damage with it. I think it's one of these where, for me, bringing in culturally relevant information, you at least are able to go, I wonder if it's actually this. And then, especially next week when we add in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, this is also why, but I'll hold off on that. But I think really relevant is something you brought up, Eric. All of it is relevant, but I would also want to bring out is the story so far, as you pointed out, is and even in your 7 questions, when God calls Abram from the land of Ur, and so Abram travels, and then they've moved from Ur before. He travels them. It's actually Haran, and they travel south. But God calls Abram, and a simple summary of what he says to him is, "Go and be a blessing." And then the next time God talks to Abram, he says, "Go, walk blameless." So I don't think there's in my mind, there's not a priority. There's simply the first instruction is go be a blessing. What does that mean? That's worth a massive conversation, books and everything else. What does that mean? Would be great. Walk blameless before me. I like this order simply because of my opinions, and applying it to kind of the dynamic of what I'll call theology and things like that. I think we are total opinion here, guys, for the podcast and everybody. I think we are sin obsessed. I think we are grace and mercy obsessed, and it's messed up our ability to understand many dynamics of even relationship and things like that. That I am not saying that there is no sin. I'm not saying grace isn't unbelievably important. It is so important. But if we can't accept that God continues to do something, I'm never going to grow. I being obsessed with ABC such that I never learned to actually read. And so anyway, that's just a side note. I'm not going to blow up, but
I've always said God isn't trying to send you to hell, he's trying to get you to heaven. To like the grace and mercy thing, there's an angle of grace and mercy in which, one, you're either abusing it, which is God is always going to give it, so then I can do whatever I want. That's a again, sin obsessed perspective of it. But the healthy respect of it is, it's an unearned. I don't deserve it yet. I want to live life as if he has given it freely, which he has. So I will never take advantage of it. But man, what a loving thing that I always have it. So
right.
Yeah. And I think you see that throughout the story of Abraham time and time again.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
In your initial question of why, I just went, and this is just off the top of my head, and it's not super spiritual. Why would he do this? I think there's a kind of common sense reason to do that. There may be like a value of human life thing, because this hospitality is offered to even people that are considered an enemy. It's not just strangers, or not just people you have good relationship with. If your enemy's traveling, you offer them hospitality still, which is a really foreign idea for us. But this kind of makes me think of, there's a scene in American Sniper. I don't know if you guys have seen that or if you remember it. Where the Marines and the SEALs, they're working their way through a city in is it Iraq? I don't remember exactly, but one of the locals who didn't evacuate the city, he's there with his family. He comes to them and he says, "Hey, even though no matter this stuff is going on, everyone has a seat at my table. Come, let me feed you dinner." And that's where the analogy stops, because it ends up that he's in cahoots with the enemy and they're trying to set him up, whatever. But that idea that everyone has a seat at my table, no matter if you're the enemy or not. That's the importance here. Maybe that I'm thinking there's a value to human life here that we're also seeing. And so anyways, go for it.
Absolutely. Good deal. So why then? Why would Abraham, I keep calling him Abraham. Sorry, it's Shirley. Why does he respond this way? What is it that is in addition? I know we talked some, but so value of human life. How about things like there's no police anywhere? So if you're traveling somewhere, and what are the major threats to you as you're traveling?
Raiders,
Good.
You know, thieves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The elements.
And isolation from neighboring communities.
Yep. And Abraham, as a nomad, knows this experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
at this point, he's got such a large thing going on that there's no threat. No one's raiding Abraham, but there is this. He still knows how to act.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll call it a general understanding of how you're supposed to respond to people, and that a very rough way of saying is that when anyone who's traveling then is by definition our word vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because among the waves process, I think it's just more ingrained in how everybody was raised and taught, and this is what you do in society. But from thousands of years away, inside a city, and safe and everything else, I'm going to say that there was a reciprocal, and also I think based on some of how God framed things, there's a reciprocal understanding. That might not be the right word, but let's go with it. That I'll take care of you because I have been taken care of, or or could be in your position and would need taken care of also. So it's not just then the people that you take care of and are hospitable to, but it's a societal bigger thing that we are all under contract with each other.
So it's kind of like a pay it forward thing.
I mean, probably not. I don't think so. I think it's just I think it's the way things function. So can we go, this is the value? Because if we go transactionally, if they're going to spend something, then what are they getting in return? And so I'm just analyzing it that way. I'm not saying, and I don't think that's the only way. I don't think we don't process things only in one way. And so, but if we just go with that, then yes, there's I have been taken care of, therefore I will take care of. And also my expectation is I will be taken care of. And so there is the right way to respond to hospitality is to be hospitable, even though the agent of the hospitality isn't the person that you are being hospitable to. Yeah, does all that make sense?
I think so. Go ahead, Ryan.
We are hospitable.
I was just gonna say something like there's this I think there's this added element too that, and this permeates just like Judaism, Christianity. It permeates the Bible, or not permeates. It goes beyond that. Sorry, wrong word. Goes beyond just the Bible. In the ancient Near East, whatever religion, whatever culture, they believed that a traveler, from what I understand, they believed a traveler was sent by their god or their gods, and so like to take care of them was essentially to take care of the god in a way. And so I think we could be seeing that a little bit. This is triggering all sorts of thoughts of Hebrews 13. You know, don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. And so like that idea of like God, like these people are sent by God. So to honor my God, I'm going to take care of them to the best of my ability.
And if I'm super let's say I'm an atheist and I read that and I go, okay, what society's doing is using a religious reason to create good response, healthy communal response to things. And so I go yes to all of it. I think as a believer, I do think that there's a God thing there. There seems to be across cultures, at least stories of experiences where people have felt like they've encountered the gods or angels or some spiritual beings, and that if they responded openly and freely and caringly, there were benefits, and when they did not, there were consequences. And so if you're going to spin the dial, go with the better, choose to act right, so that better response. The effect culturally is that it, while is not safe to travel, there are, let's call them oases, where if you meet a family, they will bring you into their house. And this is much different than it is for us now, especially after COVID. I don't know if you guys are tired of referencing COVID, but I think it's going to continue to go on. It's one of those, excuse me, it's like we reference, well, I graduated high school here, these demarcations in our lives. But anyway, I think especially after COVID, where there's less coming to my home, at least in my experience. And so hospitality, even for us, has gotten a little odd. But we talk about hospitality as a spiritual gift, or it's on our gift list or something like that. Hospitality here is not simply you like having people over. Hospitality is to see somebody and actually, and I'm not recommending this for our culture. It wouldn't, there's elements that would work. There's attitudes that would, probably the attitude would work. I'm simply saying we're just talking about why Abram is acting this way, and then it's going to lead into further conversations. But so Abram is acting in accordance with what he's learned as a nomad, as a traveling shepherd, as the head of a house, and my guess is, but also having received it, because I think this is how to understand what happens when Abraham goes to Egypt. Why is he accepted into Pharaoh's circle? For us, I don't go to France and expect, is it Macron in charge of France? Who is ever in charge of different countries to go, oh, Greg's here, come on over. That's not going to happen. So these are, Abram's certainly a significant person. He's got a lot going on. But there's a hospitality element that I think is definitely going on here also. So what does hospitality require? Simply put, again, without being I don't have a doctorate in this, just aware, but it requires you bringing them into your house, and they actually then outrank your family and you. You become, the best way I can say it, because we're leading into a really tough story, you become servants to them. That doesn't mean, in fact, you're their slave. I don't mean that at all. I mean your personal attitude is, we are here to make sure that you become rested, that you are fed, that whatever you were lacking, you are now provided. This is why even now you could show up in third world countries and be fed better food than they're eating every day. Because you are being hosted by them. And so this is a Bible version of that micro story, where not only you showed up. This isn't a weary innkeeper who's like, fine, I'll give you a room. That we have a movie. This is Abraham. It says he ran to them. And we miss issues of hospitality if we go, oh, he ran to them because he recognized it's God. And so we justify the movement based on that. I'm saying, okay, I don't have enough evidence to say it's not God. And there is some movement toward there. In the conversation that happened, it would be super weird if they don't, if he doesn't understand, or as Ryan's talking about, at least believe there's some, what we would call spiritual activity going on. But fundamentally, though, he is stop here for a while, rest in the shade I'm going to get you water. I'm going to wash your feet. And I'm going to have my servants come and wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, and again, you can go, that's God, great. But the actions that he's doing are all hospitable actions. And so when you get into their house, now you're also protected. And that we'll return to that next week also. The importance of, you are now in my house. I take responsibility for you.
Well, there's
without removing your what we call agency.
Right. Yeah. I think I mean, not to overly simplify, but the idea that you're talking about, and I apologize, my internet is going in and out if I'm being glitchy. But in hospitality is the word hospital. These come from the same place. And the ideal effect of both the hospital and then how we should treat hospitality is that the way you came in, the way you leave is better than the way you came in. That there's going to be whatever was the problem before, we are going to work to solve it, or at least give solution to the problem. And then, hospitality, I mean, it seems to be, to break it down to the idea of servanthood, I think is really, really powerful for those of us who maybe we hear the word hospitality and we kind of cringe at the idea that maybe we're always the givers but never the receivers. But the idea of that servanthood is there is no anticipation of being the receiver. It's always the giver. And we see time and time again Jesus using the examples of radical hospitality, of an openness to bring blessing, even to the point in which he invites himself over to people's homes. But the responses to his coming to their home, what he blesses in Zacchaeus is, I will do double. I will do more than what I should have done. Whatever I've taken, I will give back. And Jesus honors, we read the people that way. Even the story of Mary and Martha, there's a way to read it and go Martha was giving more, she was being more hospitable, but his perspective of hospitality is, have you sat at the feet of Jesus? I am here now. And so I think there's that we get this example in Abraham, but it's built within the culture. God specifically starts placing these things.
There's a fun play there.
Go ahead.
There's a fun play with that Mary Martha thing where Martha was correctly responding.
Correct.
Except when Jesus shows up. And while he is technically in their house, he is actually hosting them. And so Mary, in that situation, is correctly responding. So why would you set aside the elements of hospitality only if you're not the host? So Jesus in their teaching, this thing is switched. And so that's reading into it. I get it. But just a fun kind of thought. I'm only pushing just for time, but go ahead, Eric. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, again, I apologize for my internet. I do have a question of for both of you in this conversation of giving and that hospitable servanthood nature in this. How do we get out of the cause and effect or reciprocal idea of hospitality, which is we kind of started this conversation with is in a nomadic culture, you want to create an opportunity in which if I need something, I need you to respond in a similar way later on. But the example that we get from Jesus is that there's not an anticipation of receiving, but there would always, if everyone's partaking in this, which we don't live in a world of what that is happening on a regular basis. How do you give without the anticipation of receiving, yet just honoring what God has called you as a Christian to do?
Yeah, I know I'm talking about you. I'll go. There's the ideal, but I think the ideal is the way it's the ideal and should be paid attention to. And then, so first, transactional. Hospitality is not transactional. That in my read of the whole Bible, hospitality is good. And do good because it's good. We don't like that in a blessing culture, but that is the way the kingdom will work. Because when I talk ideals, those who aren't idealistic push back and go, well, that's not how the real world works. I get it, but this actually is a part of philosophy where we imagine that if this were to be done, then it would function if everybody did this. A philosopher named Ayn Rand, but this is an oversimplification, but believed in selfishness, that if everyone took care of themselves and primarily and only looked out for themselves, that the world would function. I really disagree, because I think we're doing that, but maybe not. But and that is definitely an oversimplification of Ayn Rand stuff. But it's tough it's easy to minimize genius people and their thoughts, and so I don't want to oversimplify or to ruin that. But anyway, if you're interested in contrary thought or stuff that's against this, she's a very long read and tedious, but maybe worthwhile for thinking. Anyway, I think that we do good because it's good, not to get. I believe and respond to God because it's true.
Yeah.
And right, not because I get something from him. We create a transactional situation where I will follow God if he does this. And this is where Jacob actually responds to God. God says, I'll protect you, I'll take care of you. Jacob's response is, okay, if you take care of me, then I'll make you my God. Then we can talk about this. And it's not till later that Jacob realizes, after the wrestle and everything else, that Jacob becomes a full-on, no, I'm a Yahweh guy.
Right.
He's Yahweh aware, and then he becomes Yahweh utter. I mean, you're it. Later on. But when we leave it with, I follow God because I get to go to heaven. Look, I learned the ABCs because I was told to, and I read because I had to. When I began to read because I wanted to, when I began to read outside of my comfort zone, when I began to study, to move past reading and to study, these are the areas of when I became stronger and more aware and things like that. When we do good because it's good, not to get. This is the scriptural dream. And this is where it's just limitless. It's worth all the conversation.
Yeah.
I think yeah.
That makes me think of when I was a child, I thought like a child, talked like a child, acted like a child. Part of our job, and this might sound like an offensive term to those who are beginning their journey as a Christ follower, but there is like this kind of like baby Christian. I am learning the basics of how to read, how to write. But our job, and hopefully those who are listening to the podcast or watching, as we're going through this journey together, it's us going, I am now developing the complex ideas, and one of those is to give without the anticipation of receiving, which is beyond. When you're beginning, it is you have been given salvation, and then the result is then be obedient. The growth is I've been given salvation. I am now just obedient. I don't, in the same way I don't think about breathing, I don't think about not following God. I only think in the context of, well, this is what Jesus would do. And I'm going to do as he did.
Yeah. So I think in this situation, I'm not also trying to say that all hospitality in the ancient Near East was this super generous, unbelievable, but this was all but a mandate. That to not do this is to ignore that you've had it done for you, or you could potentially have it done for you. This was morally wrong to not pour yourself out for a guest. And so again, next week this will be particularly relevant also. But I'm just because I'm going to move it a little forward, if that's okay, because I think this is super interesting. Let's come back to it if we want.
Yeah.
As the story goes on, then the men or the angels, depending on how you want to read it. It says the men. They ask where his wife is, and they go, "Oh, she's going to have a son, or she's going to get pregnant and have a baby." Sarah laughs. They go, "Yeah, you did laugh," or they say, "Hey, look, she laughed at us." She goes, "I didn't laugh." "Yeah, you did." And anyway, it just is kind of an odd conversation. But he says, "We're going to come back in a year, and you'll see." So anyway, verse 16 is where we go. The men got up from their meal and looked out towards Sodom. As they left, Abraham went with them and to send them on their way. This is a formal release of house hospitality. And should I hide my plan from Abraham? The Lord says. So our podcast is called The Odd Testament. This seems like an odd one. The Lord
is he
asked
talking to himself?
Well, he's got other ones with him,
right?
But possibly the spiritual dynamics here. There's an author that I want to read. I want to say Heisner, who was a strong scholar but talks about some spiritual stuff. So I'm wondering if he has some thoughts on this. But I don't know the dynamics here of the spirit. And are we able to find documented evidence to help us? Any data that helps us move past opinion? That's mostly what I'm interested in. I don't personally have it. So the way I read it is I go, oh, that's stuff I don't know. I'm going to keep looking. And so today we're not going to look into that. We're going to keep pushing, but absolutely to me, a relevant question. So verse 18, for Abraham will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed through him. I have singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham what I have promised. So first off, really simple question. Verse 19, why does the Lord say that he has singled out Abraham?
I just upon initial reading and just thinking through it a little bit, I think he's singled out Abraham because I think he sees that Abraham's heart is like his heart. Abraham values.
I'm going to be really direct.
Yes.
Directly out of verse 19.
Yeah.
He said, why? So
that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. So he knows Abraham's going to do the right things. He knows Abraham's going to live the way he wants him to. Yeah.
And his path is not only to learn it himself, but to teach his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord, which is doing what is right and just. So that is absolutely a nice little encapsulation of what God is trying to accomplish with Abraham. And to me, in my read of this, really, really, really relevant because of where we're going to go with it, where they go. So to keep going, verse 20. So the Lord told Abraham, I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. I am going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know. I'll pause there, and we're not going this way, but does God need to visit our ideas of God, or he knows everything, what's going on here? I don't know. And I think it's worth coming. I think we could do another podcast just on this story and maybe even a couple of them to ask some of these questions if we think we have any insight on it. These are ones that honestly I don't as of right now. I've been really focused on some other things, and so I want to come back to the story and start hitting on some of the things that I don't have. And the reason I'm talking about that in detail is I want to encourage you and our listeners that it's okay to work on something while understanding that there's things you haven't quite worked out. So I've been a Christian since for like 35, 36 years. I phrase it as I'm not dumb. And there are so many things in scripture that I don't really know. And the more I study, the more I figure out that I don't know things. So I'm gaining information and learning and growing and knowing things while realizing, oh, that's a thing too.
Yeah.
And some of them may even influence the interpretation of the whole story. So I want to, even as I come to where I think this story's going, I'm going to put a caveat and say, as of right now, this is where I think this story's going. But there's some information, there's some things here that I don't have current answers to, and I don't have time in this podcast to say, let's just unpack it randomly in a conversation.
Sure.
Because, maybe you guys do, and we can come back to that. But so my point is, it's okay to work with theories and not claim absolute knowledge about things that you may not have enough data and detail about. But it also doesn't mean you can't come to current points of view as long as they agree with the entire thing that God is trying to do. He's trying to move us into, if he was moving Abraham to teach his sons and their families how to follow the way of the Lord, which is to do what is right and just, then he's doing the same for us. Especially New Testament wise, if we become children, if we have been adopted and as children of Abraham, then this is our call also, to go and be a blessing, to go and live out blameless before him, and to teach our families and to demonstrate goodness throughout the world everywhere we go. Why? Because it's good. God says he takes care of you. We get to trust that, and we go out and be good, even when we don't have. So anyway, all right. So he says this. I've heard a great cry. So I don't know about why he has to go there and everything else. I'm interested. Very interesting. There's dynamics, at least in our current theology, we certainly don't talk about. But I'm not worried about it.
For sure. I was just reading a commentary from Matthew Henry, and just to begin to maybe give some insight to a question. One, commentaries are really great. They're not the Bible, so they don't need to be rule and law. Just read and take insight from theologians and learned people. But one of the things he writes in this is he in the going down and seeing is that there is no doubt or that God is in the dark somehow, but he is going down to show equity on his judicial proceedings, to see for himself that his eternal counsel is not from a distance, that he has some sort of resolve from a far away place. So us as the reader and listening to this story, and we've talked about this before, if the scripture is not being written in real time, it is being written for future Israelites on how to live. What we are learning is that God is not a distant God. He is coming down. So any of the punishments that the Israelites probably experience at this point, they are not seeing the God on a blazing mountain. They're seeing the God coming in the form of an available, seeing the perspective of his creation, and still passing judgment upon that. I like the beginning idea of that. Again, it's not explicitly said, and nor does it necessarily need to be, but looking at some of the potential understandings of who this is being written to, why it would be written to, and what are some of the things coming up for the Israelites that they would have to understand about God's view of them. Is he always in this high mountain, or is he down in the valley with you? I think is an interesting perspective on this.
So really quickly to piggyback off that a little bit, so that makes me think of something that I've read a little bit about as far as polytheism goes, and the idea of demons or lesser spiritual beings is in polytheism, right? And so like so like the idea of like a prince as far as spiritually is like the greater gods would assign these lesser gods to basically be princes of certain regions, and these lesser gods, these demons, would report back to them what's going on in these regions. And so here, I mean, based on what you said, Eric, I think this is a claim of like, nope, our God doesn't do that. He is fully involved in everything going on. You know, he's not sending some other deity to do his work. He is involved. He wants to be involved in what's going on, which is a big claim for people coming out of polytheism. So maybe not super important to the story. I don't think it changes the story at all, but I think it's a little nuance, nice little detail that I think just kind of adds to who our God is and what he cares about.
Yeah. Does God here in the beginning of this section right here where he's saying, do I keep my plans away from Abraham? Is he doing it as like he knows because Lot is there in Abraham's family? Is he doing this to take care of Abraham, like of not worrying about the thing, because God would care for Abraham and what Abraham cares about, and Abraham cares about his family? Is there a reading in that of that's why God would not show this information to or provide his plans to Abraham?
Yeah, I think I think there's elements possible here.
Sure.
I think that relatively close. There's interaction. You know people. You are aware of situations. You've seen Abraham actually talk with the king. We'll call it mayor, leader of that city, and say, "Nope, I don't want your stuff."
Right.
God, it's not going to be say that a man make Abraham rich, and so there's a dynamic there. There's a separation between Abraham and Sodom, and there's some good sermons that kind of can probably come out of that. But at this point, what we do know is that some really bad things are happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, in the valley down there, and to the degree that an outcry has come up, and whatever up means, and reach the Lord. And the phrase that's being used for the principal speaker here is the capital Lord, and so it's probable. It's probably that YHWH is being used there.
Sure.
Or if you're maybe Adonai is another translation of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, or replacement of that. Should we hold back our plan? We've heard, so the Lord says to Abraham, we've heard this outcry. I'm going down to see if this is wicked. The other men turned towards Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Verse 23, Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Now, we're probably short on time here, but so I'm going to, again, keep pushing. There's just so much. This whole thing is just rich.
Yeah.
Probably should have done 3 with this, but just that question is fascinating to me. So hold on to that question. Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? And what I want you to hold with that is that a human point of view, or is this? Do you read it as what I'm going to call heart of Torah point of view? So we can read some of us know that Sodom and Gomorrah gets destroyed. And we can easily, if we're doing this easily, one, we don't care that thousands of people are killed. We can be excited about it because they deserved it. And we are very interested in the spectacle, in the sulfur and the fire, and then Lot's wife as a pillar of salt, and the spectacle catches us. And I think there are better lessons. And I'll say that pretty strongly. That there are absolutely better lessons than the spectacle.
Yeah.
And I think this might be an indication. Abraham's question to me is just brilliant. And so he continues, verse 24, suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you won't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why would you be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same? Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right? This is so good. God has just said that his reason for singling out Abram is that he wants Abraham to teach his children, and therefore the rest of everybody, how to follow the way of the Lord, which is to do what is right.
Yeah.
Abraham, not knowing that part of the conversation, literally says and calls God. Back in the 90s, there was this call God into remembrance. It was the idea, but it was related to getting a blessing or something like that.
Sure.
This is calling him into remembrance, and it's not that God has forgotten. I'm preaching. I'm getting loud. This is not that God has forgotten. If I have to know that God has not forgotten his own call and moved towards human righteousness, and based on his own actions of justice and righteousness. Okay, so is he then proposing? And I'm doing if we were to ask, is he proposing then that God is going to go do something unjust? God is not. He has simply put the question to Abraham. This is what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to go see. That's all he said to Abraham so far. But if they're wrong, stuff's going to go bad. So among my read-ins is that Abraham knows, because God hasn't said, I'm going to go destroy everything.
Right. He's just going to go take a look.
He's going to go look. And Abraham's like, oh no.
I know what you're going to find.
It's like you have a little brother who's an idiot, or there's weed in the car or something. You're like, no, let me distract you. Let me get that out. I don't know. I'm totally making fun because it's nowhere near that. But maybe Abraham does know. Maybe this is the Lot question that you were asking. He's like, my boy's down there. So I don't know. But and the Lord says in verse 26, if I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake. Then Abraham spoke again, since I've begun, let me speak further, my Lord, even though I am but dust and ashes. Suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5? So this is a brilliant negotiation. He's now changed the conversation to away from the entire city to really, you're going to kill everybody for 5? And so, and so God says, if there's 45 righteous people there, I won't destroy it. Then Abraham presses further. What if there's only 40? And the Lord says, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. Verse 30, please don't be angry with me, my Lord. Abraham pleaded, let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people are found. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if I find 30. Then Abraham said, since I have dared speak, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20. And the Lord replied, if I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Finally, Abraham said, Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there. And the Lord replied, then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. And the Lord finished his conversation with Abraham, and he went on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. Okay. Is this evidence that God changes his mind?
No.
Right.
I think it's evidence that God wants to be merciful. I think it's evidence that he wants to extend grace He is a God of justice, and he will do what needs to be done, but he is also a God of grace and mercy, and he wants to extend those things to people. And also, knowing what I know of scripture, right, I see like this is like a foreshadowing of what Jesus does for us as that permanent intercessor. He's constantly in God's ear. Remember, you love him, don't destroy him. Remember. And I also think of when Moses comes down off the mountain in Sinai. Now I'm getting to another story, but they're all sinning, and God's like, I'm going to destroy him, and Moses has to say, hey, don't, like, please show us mercy. And God relents because he wants to be merciful. He wants to show mercy. He's gonna do what needs to be done, but he also wants to show grace and mercy. So I think that's what this is showing us, I think.
Yeah, there's an interesting reading in this, like how far would God have gone down if Abraham didn't leave? And so, like the God is rich in mercy and not changing his mind. He's responding to pleads for mercy, which is I think way more powerful than the idea of God changing his mind. Is that he responds to mercy. He responds to his people calling for mercy, which is an act of repentance. God, be merciful. I have to be aware that I've done something wrong. Someone has done something wrong, and I deserve I deserve righteousness and justice in your eyes, which is separation. So I am calling upon your mercy right now. And so, there's an interesting thing of God not being like, there's obviously a negotiation, but it's more, I see God opening the eyes of Abraham's understanding of mercy and how far he is willing to go, even in what Abraham would be aware does not deserve God's mercy. And so God is continuing, go, Abraham, see my actions. I will keep going more and more and more. In the limiter is when you walk away. Here's the point in which now we do what needs to be done.
Let me give you a potential framework, and I covered this in my podcast a number of years ago, but a framework for everything that Abraham is doing. And I'm going to steal John Mark Comer's word because I don't like our word, but I'll mention our word. But I'll begin with John Mark Comer's. What if Abraham is God's apprentice? What if this is our first real proof or example of a disciple? Of disciple, the word I'm not a huge fan of discipleship. That God is teaching Abraham how to be a blessing, how to act, to recognize justice and versus injustice, and how to act righteously, how to live according to his ways, which is literally what he says. And that the entire process, go be a blessing, go walk blameless, even to the point of these questions. And I think what I wrote is, consider the possibility that God is saying, should we reveal this to Abram, as transparency with purpose. That the transparency to have Abraham engage in the process of justice. And that he's also, I don't really like the word test, but he might be seeing, how have you been paying attention? Have you been listening? Have you, and that Abraham's the questions then agree with God. That God, as you've already talked about, from afar didn't just destroy the place because it was annoying, which also would be other ancient Near East gods. The whole flood, they're too noisy, so we're just going to wipe them out. So Is it possible? And I think it is very possible. As I frame it this way, it's hard to say the way I'm framing it that it's not this. So I do like that. It's somewhat protected. But a real side note that when he says "I will spare," the Hebrew also leans toward forgive, which is interesting. But I'll spare. I'll let them go. I won't bring the consequence of their action upon them. Among the things that are also interesting is Abraham. Who is he appealing for his own safety?
No, it doesn't appear. It doesn't appear so.
Who's he appealing? Who's he arguing for?
The righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah.
And the consequence then would be the entire place.
Sure.
Also,
Yeah.
right? So
Sure.
he's definitely interceding. So he's interceding for that. And that's the word. He's interceding,
Yeah.
right? And this may be, I'd have to do more research. I think this is the first instance that we see in scripture of intercession. Moses does it and uses some of this same language, interestingly. But here it is. Abraham is trading on his relationship with God for the benefit of others.
Which is an act of hospitality.
It possibly is, yeah. It's a commitment to what is right. Also,
Yeah.
right? It's a commitment to what is just. That's what he's appealing to God. You wouldn't wipe out the unrighteous, the righteous along with the unrighteous. Look, I'm not going to argue with you that there's people down there that shouldn't be, who are bad enough they shouldn't be around anymore. But in doing that, you're going to wipe out everybody. Jesus even referencing later on, essentially, I'm going to do damage to this, but gives the idea of the reason we don't just wipe everybody out is that we're going to lose. You go through and you try to kill the weeds in a field, you're going to catch up the good stuff too. So we're going to try and do what we can, but the righteous are actually more valuable in this kind of weird economy. This God economy leaves 99 to find one, which is in our mind wrong. It should be seen as wrong. We're not being honest about about any of those stories. You don't lose everything. You also don't throw a party because you found one coin. Right?
Yeah.
The party costs more than the coin. But anyway.
Yeah.
Someone's listening going, I have no idea what he's talking about. These are Jesus parables about the kingdom of God. So as I wrap this up, just in the interest of time, I think the question I had originally posed in doing my podcast was, does God change his mind? And I argue no, and that the story isn't really about that. We bring baggage into conversations. So next week will be another, especially when talking about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, we bring baggage into that. And if we can separate it and accept that, oh, that's baggage, we'll see if it's relevant as we go into it. It becomes, but the baggage we bring up, it messes our ability to engage and interpret it. And the need to have God so sovereign and not, in a sense, interactive, it separates us from seeing. It can separate us from seeing a father who's trying to teach about righteousness and justice. So the question of, does he know everything? From this perspective, it actually isn't affected. It's me. I've been leading you guys this entire conversation to this. And it doesn't mean that I didn't know where I wanted to go. It meant that I wanted to have a conversation about it. And the conversation on my side, because I'm not God by any stretch, was I also want to learn your perspectives on it and things like that. But this story is incredible. It's about God. Actually, I would say makes God more sovereign in our little way of thinking. It's God knowing so much and allowing himself to be known, that his purpose is to teach Abram and to see, are we on the same page? Are we are we trading in the same stuff here? And so the answer is, does God know everything? Yes, and to the degree that I can't even comprehend it.
Yeah.
He knows also that we need to learn through application, and so he engages, in my mind, Abraham in the process of justice.
It's good. It's great.
So
That's good.
anyway, that's me.
Really quick. So a thought I had, like, as we're reading this, I think not only is I think it was verse 19, right? He singled Abraham out because he knows he'd do what is right and just and teach his kids to do the same. I think the rest of it is also us seeing not only is Abraham going to do what's right and just, but he cares about what God cares about. He's not just going to do what God wants because God's going to smite him. Like, he actually cares about the things God cares about. He cares about those you mentioned earlier, those people who are vulnerable. Like, I think we see that too. Like, God's heart is for people who can't care for themselves, people who are down and out, marginalized, vulnerable, however you want to say it. And that whole like interaction, the negotiation, will you sweep away the righteous with the unrighteous? Like, are you going to take out people who are innocent? Are you going to take out people who are vulnerable? And I think that reveals Abraham's heart is the same as God's there. And so God knows, okay, like he gets it. He gets it. So.
And very much, if possible, bring that point of view into next week. God's point of view on vulnerability and the effect of evil on vulnerability.
Good, man. Good episode, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't wait for next week.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up, guys, because I know we all got things to do. So if you're enjoying the Odd Testament podcast, we'd love your support. The best way to help us to keep bringing this awesome content your way is to show us some love. And here's how you can do that. First, take a moment to rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Rate, review us 5 stars, please. If it's a 1-star, tell us why it's 1-star in the reviews, but give us 5 stars. That's all we're interested in. Next, don't forget to subscribe, share our content. That way it can get us out to more and more people, and you can stay up to date on everything we release. We release new content every Monday, so be on the lookout for that. And finally, follow us on social media for updates, clips, reviews, highlights, all that good stuff. And join the conversation. Comment your thoughts below. Answer our get to know you questions. Just engage with us. We'd love to hear from you. We want to talk about what you want to talk about. So we'd love for you to reach out and tell us some weird stories from the Bible you want to know about. So
Josh Lorimer, do a comment. You said you were going to. You're required.
Yeah. Laura Ackerman did. She commented on, I think, his Instagram and gave us 3 really good suggestions for odd stories. So we'll have to talk about that sometime. But
Cool.
Guys, your support means the world to us, and together, I believe we can keep bringing this odd and inspiring content to the world. So, guys, Eric, Greg, thanks for being on. Everyone tuning in, thanks for listening. We will catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.